Connecting. Come on. Okay, Reverend Patrina, you're live.
Welcome to Church Biz. I do want to thank everybody for tuning in to be with us for some critical information, some help for relationships with our very special guest. But remember that WCEG Network is your nonprofit radio station, internet radio station. So go to www.wcegtalkradio.com in case you are looking for somewhere to contribute your money that's going to get an excellent return. There's something for everyone at WCEG Network. Just stay in tune with all of our shows, show times, look for our announcements, and we do so thank you in advance for tuning in for all of the WCEG Network shows. All right, today we have Pastor Anthony L. Wilson as our special guest on today. And our subject is when the love has what? After the love has what? During this COVID time, Pastor Wilson, thank you for being a part of today's show. Before we get into the show, let me ask you to introduce yourself to the WCEG Network listeners.
All right. Well, good morning. I am Anthony L. Wilson, lead servant of Church 180 in not Locust Grove. We used to be in Locust Grove. We're in Hampton, Georgia now, and also serve as a prison chaplain for the Department of Corrections for the state of Georgia. Published author, father, mentor, community activist, entrepreneur, public speaker, and undoubtedly the relationship mentor. So I'm all things relationship, and I count it an honor and a privilege to be with you on this morning.
Oh, thank you so much for being a part of our show today. I'm hearing a lot of chatter about divorces and breakups, and in the midst of a global pandemic, don't we think that's kind of like untimely?
Yeah and no. What I'm finding out more and more is the whole issue with marriage. Marriage has been fashionable. It's real fashionable now in this season. Probably in the last 10 years, it's been just a fashionable thing to do. People really don't understand what marriage is, the whole point and purpose of it. And so right now, I'm real big on people understanding the whole dynamic of purpose. The Bible is clear in Romans 8:28 that all things work according to God's purpose. And if God's purpose is the essence of all things, then individuals have to know what their purpose is way before they get married. What's happening is some people, not all, but some will get married and then end up possibly finding out what their purpose is and how to live their purpose out, and then discover that they are really with the wrong person. But by that time, it's too late. And what I'm seeing and what I'm feeling in this season of the pandemic is a lot of people are finding out, number one, they don't know what their purpose is. Their mate don't know what their purpose is. And so when you don't know what your purpose is, pandemics can cause it to go awry. You can you find yourself in the midst of having wandering eyes, wandering intentions with other people. So purpose is very important. And I think those relationships that survive any storm are those individuals who know what their purpose is as a person and what their purpose is within the confines of that marriage. So I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised because a lot of people don't like their spouse. So, and when you are having to now work mobile from the house and you're in there, you're in that space much more than you used to, you find out really who the person is, and you find out really who you are in that relationship. And so But purpose always uh, brings about focus. So that's one of the things I always like to tell people and teach people.
Amen. And I totally agree with you on that particular point, that people need to know what their purpose is before they get married. And I also add to that, they need to be aggressively pursuing the purpose, because a lot of people might know their purpose, but if they aren't doing anything with it, you're in the same situation that a person who does not know their purpose is in a relationship.
Yeah, if you just let me add this, I'm gonna tell you how so critical this is. See, when you don't know what your purpose is, you're gonna try to find ways and means to satisfy what you think is important in your life. And those things, if they're not attached to your purpose, it'll cause you to drift more and more and more away from where it is you need to be. But if you allow me, I can tell you what everybody's purpose is. I can tell you what your purpose is. I can tell you what my purpose is. I can tell you what your producer's purpose is. I can tell you what your engineer. So let me give you some. And I normally charge people this for what I'm about to tell you.
We're doing it for our listeners for free.
So everyone's purpose, that when they come through their mother's birth canal and come into the world, their purpose is to serve others. Okay?
Amen.
Their purpose is to serve others. What I cannot tell you is how God uniquely is designed a certain way for you to fulfill your way of serving others. So, and so with that being said, if you know your purpose is to serve others and you're in a relationship, you have to keep that in the forefront and in the back front of your mind, that I am in this relationship, I am in this marriage. Let's go with marriage, to serve my mate. So if that is the construct of it, then now you have to figure out ways of doing it within the parameters of your marriage. And I think that is so critical, because people are talking about, this person makes me happy. No, that's not how it works. You are to enhance the other person's happiness, because their happiness first is found within their relationship with the Lord, and the fact that they are living their purpose. And most folks, and I know I'm harping on this, but most folk are frustrated with their current condition and climates, because number one, they did not know the information I just shared with you, and that is their purpose is to serve other people. We're so selfish. Life, and don't get me wrong, life programs us, especially in our Western culture. It programs us to have a me mentality, when everything about Christ and the Word is about others mentality. And with that being said, you got to find out who you are, find out what your purpose is, and then God will design it in such a way that you will meet the person that you're supposed to be with, in the realm of what your purpose is. Exactly. So I can go on and on about that, but that's really the nuts and bolts of it. Know your purpose, find your focus, and then figure out ways for you to fulfill that. And that's what God will do. Your spiritual gifts, your talents, your passion, your giftings, your skill sets, all of that will help you to better fulfill what your purpose is.
All right. And I so wholeheartedly hear you 100%. You talked about the me mentality. Isn't that somewhat of a juvenile mindset as well, that we carry on into adulthood? Because children are always like me, 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 me. But if parents are doing what they're supposed to and teaching their kids, it's not just you, it's about everybody, and they groom them in that, don't we find that that mindset, we have to let that go because we're getting older. We should be renewing the way that we think.
Yeah, absolutely. You're on it. And the extension of the home needs to be that of the community, the schools, the churches, things of that nature. But our culture, again, it's so driven by entertainment and media, um, um, and the programming of particular mindsets that, and understand all of it is a part of spiritual warfare. The undergirding all of it is spiritual warfare. And so uh, it's very comfortable to have a me mentality because you understand exactly what you want. But when it's about others, you have to. It takes a supernatural help, aid and assistance to help you with that as well, and that's very key and critical as well. When I tell, and I'm gonna say something that people don't really, it don't really catch them at first, but this is important because we're talking about marriage, we're talking about this pandemic, we're talking about people trying to stay together. See, marriage is not natural. Okay,
Amen.
being with someone for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years is not a natural phenomenon. It is a supernatural phenomenon.
Amen.
That's why when your kids get a certain age, you want them out the house. You do not want them in your house forever. And what happens is, and when they do, they may leave and come back. You start bumping heads and you come back to that same argument. Well, if you don't want to abide by my rules, then you know. So because it's not a natural thing, but when you got people walking and in the spirit and being controlled by the Holy Spirit, they can have that others mentality and not be selfish and have a respect for other people's space and things of that nature. Um, so there's a lot that goes into that, and like I said, I do a lot of premarital counseling, and and I do some marital counseling. I do some, but I try to mainly the marital counseling I do because I'm not a certified marriage counselor. I try to do like a maintenance piece. If it's some specific things within that marriage, I like to refer certain people out to people that I have relationships who I know can kind of help them. And it gives them kind of a neutral ground as well. But more and more, when I talk to people in premarital sessions, they do not have a clue as to what they're trying to get themselves into. Women, and let me say this, um, you never get married to solve a problem. And I'm seeing that time and time again. And the problem that most people are trying to solve, for women, they're trying to solve the problem of them being lonely. For men, they're trying to solve the problem of answering an ultimatum they've been given. So what happens is women have this sense of loneliness and they're frustrated because they're thinking, I'm getting older and I'm lonely and I don't want to die alone. And that's their mentality. Okay. Men get married because most women give a man an ultimatum because men are not walking around. They are not walking around telling me, "Oh, I can't wait to be someone's husband." But but women have been groomed from little girls to have their knight in shining armor, to get their prince charming, to be the damsel in distress, and they got their Barbie and their Ken, and they grow up with the fairy tales and stuff like that. And when they become adults, they find out the reality is it don't happen that way. So yeah.
Also, I want to mention how some people don't know how to act under pressure, and a lot of us are. And so we're making the preemptive move. Hey, it must be time for us to go our separate ways. And
Yep.
that's not necessarily the case sometimes. People just can't say, I'm hurting, I'm afraid. They're afraid to say, I'm scared, I don't want to catch COVID or whatever else is going on. And it's impacting their relationships, while the one that's being impacted, they're just taking it out of context. Can you
Right.
speak to that?
Yeah, that's a major statement you made there. And men are notorious for not being expressive in a constructive way to communicate their fears and their anxieties, because again, we have been taught from little boys to always be in control, to always have the answer and things of that nature. And now when you're looking at all this uncertainty, and now you have a wife and children, and you're supposed to be the quote unquote backbone, the foundation, the rock. But when the rock, is fearful, that's the time you have to depend on the woman that God has given you to help you to be everything you need to be as a man. That's the time, because God has placed some stuff in that woman to help you. You understand? And vice versa. And so we know women can tend to be a little bit emotional and things of that nature. And I want to say to men, and I'm going to talk about it more in my book to men called The Adam Effect, the importance of dealing with the elephant in the room, the E word. That's our emotions. It's okay to cry. It's okay to say, I don't know. It's okay to tell the truth, because for the sake of thinking we can still be in control, we will tell a lie and try to hold on to it till it it can't live no more, all to protect our vulnerabilities. And when you have the right woman in your life, brothers, to every man that listens to me that's married, when you have the right woman, she's not going to beat you up and throw you under the bus because you're in a situation where you don't know. You never know what God has already placed in that woman. But you don't give her a chance to help, aid, and assist you, you can end up struggling. And vice versa. Women have to be very careful about how, even in the midst of a pandemic and a time of panic, you have to be careful how you communicate to a man. You understand? So that's going to be that's very important. Now I have not, like right now I can think of a few people, I don't want to name names, that they're separated right now. People who are real near and dear to me. But I think there were some things that were in place that was causing it to head that route. But I think the pandemic kind of just heightened it to the point where it made it easier for them to not really communicate, express their concerns, fears, and things of that nature, and to part ways. Those vows, ladies and gentlemen, those vows that you took, God heard them, and He's gonna hold you to them. And they are real clear: for better and for worse, for richer, for poor, for sickness and in health. We forget that. We forget that. And I implore you, make sure you study those vows before you talk about you want to get married. So I hope I answered your question.
Oh, yes, you did. We have a question in our chat room, and it
Yeah.
says, when a woman is trying to help him, why do men think that she's trying to control him instead of him to be the best that he can be?
All right. So within men have to understand that point. I think men are better suited to be husbands when they figure out what God knew about Adam in the beginning. And that was, Adam could not be everything Adam could be and should be without Eve. When a man realized that and recognized that, he would never see his wife as the enemy or an adversary or an antagonist of things of that nature. That whatever she says and do to you and for you is for the betterment of who you are and for the betterment of relationship. And the same has to be true with the men. Again, I refer back to a portion of my book that I'm writing, as I deal with these chapters, men have to understand the Eve effect. Understand the evil effect is the undeniable, undescribable, unexplainable impact and influence a woman has on a man. God has given, he has designed women to give that to a man. And when he recognized that, you're talking about a powerful couple, a powerful situation. But back to, but the key component is, you knew, women have to understand, you kind of know what you're dealing with before you get married. You kind of know this. You get it during the dating time. Okay, you get it during the dating season. And if your man has issues communicating, getting married to him is not going to solve the communication issue. It's not going to solve. Again, go back to what I said. You don't get married to solve a problem. There are some things you have to bring into the marriage, and then once you're in the marriage, you get to enhance those things. So an insecure man or insecure husband or insecure guy is always going to be a detriment to a relationship. So women have to understand, wives have to understand what you're dealing with. If you feel like you got an insecure man, there's some things you got to do to help with his ego issue of and then be some things in his past. That's why you have to try to, as much as you can, get to know your mate as much as you can. Ask the tough questions. Women continue to ask a lot of questions.
And understand that if they aren't getting answered, there's a problem.
Yes.
Do not proceed forward. It's for the best of both of you. Communication is key.
Yes.
One of the things I'm noticing as well, the insecurities, like you're basically saying, they existed prior to this pressure point.
Yes.
And it's just exposing it more,
Right.
and people are not liking what they see. But these are issues that should be addressed, and not everything will before marriage, but almost everything can, whereas you can build a pretty much solid foundation with God at the base. What do you say about that? I think because the foundation was already weak going into the marriage, the COVID just happened to bring it out.
All right, well, let me see if I can do this without giving some more important information that I normally have to charge people. And let me tell you why I charge people. Why I want people to invest. See, when you have to invest in something, you take it more seriously as opposed to free information. I promise you, people, I don't know why it's like that, but people value what they have to invest in as opposed to what's for free. So let me just say that. But because I love you all and y'all brought me back on your show, here's some free information. Here it is. I always ask couples this question because this is going to set the tone and tenor of what's going to happen. I always ask couples to write down everything they do not like about their mate. So I give the groom a piece of paper. I give the bride a piece of paper. I say, now, on this piece of paper, I want you to write down every single thing you do not like about your mate. Okay? And then I say, are you sure? And then after they say, yeah, this, okay, I say, now, as you look at that list, I don't want you to show the other person, but look at that list. I want you to ask yourself, by everything you know you don't like about this person, are you willing to live with this for the rest of your life? Because if you do, then you can't be surprised. You can't be alarmed when it shows up in the marriage. You can't say, I don't want this no more. I'm getting out. No, you knew prior to. This is some stuff you readily identified, things you don't like about your mate. Okay? Because no one's perfect. You understand? And if you're willing to live with this, then it's okay. Go ahead and proceed, as you would say. But if some you just cannot, and you're thinking that once I get married, they're going to change and do this. No, pump your brakes, get those issues resolved, and then proceed.
There you go. So because men have a hard time communicating their feelings, and they believe they would appear weak if they share their true feelings, like insecurity, hurt from past relationships, childhood trauma. Can you talk about, and it goes both ways, but you mentioned the fact that men like to lie and hold on to a lie because they want to look like Superman, that knight in shining armor. And so to express something differently, that makes them feel too vulnerable. And so they keep up with the facade, which later on,
Catches up.
yeah, I like that. Catches up with you.
Yeah, so I always, and you're on it. A couple of things with that. So when I deal with marriage and I deal with relationships, it's not that I'm hard on men, but I'm firm on men to understanding their role, because you have to understand there's certain roles and responsibilities in a marriage, and this is important, especially when you deal with finances. When the woman has a little bit more education, she's went to school, she's making more money, and all of that. Roles, responsibilities, things of that nature are very important. Maybe we'll talk about that later, but for a woman, you have to have the type of environment where the man can be vulnerable. So you cannot allow him to express himself and then later you bring it up and use it against him. If you do that, he may not say anything or whatever, but I promise you, he has checked out that relationship because you have damaged his ego. And he's going to find something or someone or some place to help build his ego up. And so it's very key and critical that women always provide an environment where the man can be open and honest. And brothers, if you find that kind of woman, you better hang on in there with that one. Very key and critical. And ladies, when you find a man who will openly express how he feels, and you don't beat him over the head saying you're in your feelings and you're this and you're that. If you got a man express himself, you got something you need to probably hold on to as well, ladies.
Exactly. As well, we women have been groomed to think that a man is supposed to be strong. He's not supposed to cry, and so sometimes the woman is thinking, what's wrong with him? Because she also has been embedded with that image and has to fight against that. But talking about expectations, I think the thing is couples need to discover their mate in their truest selves in order to have proper expectations of them, because sometimes we have an image that we build expectations off of and no one can meet them.
Yeah. I can say a lot about that to the end that I always say be careful with all of these superficial overestimating expectations. You don't want to put that kind of pressure on someone else. And what's interesting is we want other people to be what we're not willing to be ourselves. So with men, stop. You can't have these superficial expectations about women, and then you don't want to live up to some of the same stuff you want, and vice versa with the ladies. And I think ladies will probably be found guilty of this. They want the man to be 6'2" and this and that and have this amount of money. And listen, there's a time and a place for all of that. But when you're talking about the supernatural union that God has ordained for you, listen, he may be the same height that you are. Okay? He may make a little bit less money than you do at this point. Fellas, she may not be 36, 24, 36. Okay. Ladies, he may not be, have a 32, 34-inch waist and, a 40, 45, 50-inch biceps and triceps and all of that. So that may not be what God has for you at that point. Because check this out. A lot of times, most women, when they've had it, it didn't work out for them. And most men, when you had it, it didn't work out for you. Because I tell people like this, being handsome and being beautiful comes with responsibilities. It comes with drawing a whole lot of attention to yourself. And you want this, and those are superficial things that can change over time. So you need more than that. Find out, let's go back, find out what your purpose is. Knowing that your man's purpose is what it is, ladies, and men knowing what your woman's purpose is. And you bring those things together, okay? And how now you can together help serve others. Because the substratum of every relationship is gonna have to have a foundation. And have expectations based upon what your purpose is, as opposed to selfish means. And don't get me wrong, you want somebody to respect you. You want somebody who cares for you. You want someone who want to pray for you and pray with you. All right. And we need to come back to that a little later before we end that, how important and critical prayer is in a marriage. But those are the things you look for, and not those unrealistic expectations. It's very important. And I get it. When you don't know, life is a learning experience. But when God brings you through certain experiences in a relationship, take the lessons learned, grow from it, and move on. But don't keep doing the same thing and expect different results.
Exactly. They call that insanity.
Absolutely.
Same thing over and over and expecting a different result. But all too often we find that we have that 80-20 rule in relationships. 80% is this is what I want, and 20%, well, maybe we feed it, you can have yours, or vice versa. 80% you better be on, and 20% I'm all right. I don't have to do anything different. And you hit on that earlier. Relationships is about serving, about giving, helping, aiding, assisting, highlighting, building up the other person. So that means you have to have something going into the relationship in order to help them be those things. We have a personal responsibility. I'm not trying to take the floor from you, but
no, you're good.
But will you speak on that again?
Right. If everybody in a relationship serve the other person, you should have a successful marriage. That principle, and this for people who don't read the Bible, and people, I'm working in prison. I always talk to people who don't, I say, all right, I say, okay, you may not believe in the Bible, but let me ask you this: do you believe that you should treat others the way you want to be treated? That people say, yeah. I say, okay, that's a biblical principle.
Yes.
If everybody would treat others the way they want to be treated, our jails wouldn't be where they are. Our divorce rate wouldn't be where they are. Gang violence and murder wouldn't be where they are. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. So in order for you to have that component ingrained into your subconscious and your conscious, man, it takes God's help. Because again, the enemy wants you to have a me mentality. Okay. I wish you could sit in on some of my premarital counseling sessions. It's mind-boggling. They have most of the time they have it all figured out. And let me say this. Remember I said I don't like to be hard on men, but let me be firm. I don't understand this about men. Man, you about to make a commitment for the rest of your life and you don't want marital counseling, premarital counseling? Who does that? Who wants to go to a job and they don't give you no orientation, they don't give you no expectations? Come on now. One of the ways you become an effective employee is you need to learn the system. You need to learn how they do it here. You can't do it the way you did it where you just came from. It's no, the principles yet apply in marriage. You understand what I'm saying? So when these people, when people come to me and they want to get married, I just sit and listen for a lot, for the most part, and deal with this whole issue of what they want and I'll be like, how's the ceremony going to go? And you hear all this stuff almost where they spend it. And I'm not knocking anybody's hustle and nobody's business, but the wedding business is an interesting business. All right. Because you are actually selling a fantasy. But ladies, your marriage is not a wedding. Because a whole lot of people, just because a person says I do, don't mean they will. You need to know prior to getting into that, what's expected, what's the role, who's going to do what before you get in. You don't want to get into it and then figure it out.
Right. They're so focused on the wedding, you know, they're not even giving thought to the marriage. But do you also counsel older couples? And if so, are you finding that they're having a lot of the same problems that the younger couples are having?
I have done a few, but not many. Not many, because a lot of older couples, a lot of times they just, they're settled, and they are settled, and they have settled for a lot of them. And then the other piece to that is they've kind of learned to live with what's always been. But some, again, goes back to what I said, purpose and the things of that nature. After 20, 30 years, they find out what their God-given purpose is, and they look up and find out that really, I wasn't even supposed to be with you.
Yes, it
But
happens.
God gave you grace. God gave you grace. Let me help you. And let me help men. Let me help husbands. When the church opens back up, and when it was open, do not ever allow your wife to go to church and you're not there. Because I am as a pastor and other pastors, because you want to know what any man is speaking into your wife's life. Okay? And ladies, the same goes for you. You don't want to ever let your husband go to church and you're not there, because you don't know what's being taught to him. But when you're both together, that togetherness, and really, to be honest, I found, and this is some advice I got from a couple who had been married 60 years, because I asked them this before I wrote my first book. I said, what's the key? They said, we are best friends. And so when you take a couple who's been best friends, that dynamic of friendship as the foundation, they know that no matter what happens, that other person is going to have their best interest at heart. And so when you look at older couples who have been married for a long time, older couples, they find out they really were not best friends, and they seek solace and comfort from someone outside their marriage. It's a problem. And sometimes it takes them coming to me or to a marriage counselor to find out, y'all need to develop a friendship. Because what I cannot understand, I need somebody to help me. Now, I've been married, divorced. That's a whole nother show. But I want to be married again. Okay. And let me, as a disclaimer, all this I know now, I didn't know when I was married. So let's be clear. That's why I said, whatever situation you find yourself in, God allows you to go through it. Get the nuts and bolts and the learnings and the lessons and the principles for that, and grow on. So I said all that to say this: you have to get to a point of knowing that friendship, togetherness is what it takes for a relationship to be what it needs to be.
You talked about couples, and I agree with the friendship piece because that is so critical when I talk to different couples, especially those sustaining relationships. That's one of the key qualities that they have in common, as well as they know their purpose, they love God individually, and then they bring that love together and build off of that. But one of the things you talked about is going to worship with your betrothed and finding out what they're being taught. But in some cases, God has called couples to attend different churches. What do you say about that?
God has called couples to attend different, and that's interesting. That's interesting. I don't know if I'll agree 100% with that. I believe that you want to make sure, let's say it this way. If where you're going or where the other person is going, it is they're not getting biblical principles for life that they can apply to, then that's different. I'm talking about being taught. I'm not talking about being active in church. You can be active anywhere, but I'm
Right.
talking about learning and growing in the word. Um, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I can agree 100% with that, but we
That's
can agree,
all
disagree
fair
that some,
question. That's all
huh?
the conversation we could have.
Yeah, to be called, to, you're together, but then you go to two different places to worship. Yeah, that's a tough one right there.
It
That
really
is
is,
a tough
but
one.
it's a reality for a lot of couples, and like I said, that could be an off-air discussion. But I want to let our audience know that sometimes people don't walk into the fullness of their calling unless they're attached at a particular ministry. Whereas if they follow the mate, because typically the wife follows the husband, but that may not be where God called her to be. And therefore, she can actually be obedient to the spouse, but be disobedient to God because her calling might be attached to another ministry. And I probably opened Pandora's box with that particular statement, but we'll just leave it right.
Well,
Yes.
okay, well, when you put it in that frame of reference, okay, it's still gonna go back to purpose. If you know prior to what your purpose is, I believe God will work it where um you can get some training from someone that not necessarily may be um attached to your mate. But I think when purpose comes into play, for instance, let's say the couple finds out, okay, we want to start a food bank as a couple, or we want to start a feed the homeless campaign or something like that. That is ministry, you know what I'm saying? And if one, let's say one church is not, they don't have a clue about that, but the other one is, then I can see what you're saying and things of that nature. But I think coming together to actually worship and worship also needs to take place within the confines of the home and things of that nature. So yeah,
That's where
so
it should start
yeah,
in the church.
so I get you, but that's a good topic to talk about. That's a good topic to talk about.
Okay, thank you. And in the comments section, we have someone who says, "I've had a marriage and family counselor to state he didn't want his wife to work because no man should allow another male to be over his wife or boss over her." Kind of like the separate worship thing, but like I tell people too, you don't go together, don't go to work together either. So what's the problem? Because if your wife or your husband has to go with you, then why are you not working at the same job? And
All
so,
right. Well,
well,
okay.
anyway,
So if a man says he don't want his wife to work, then you better make sure she got something that she's doing for the kingdom of God. Okay, because
mhm,
if she's over there twiddling her thumbs and you going out to work, I promise you it ain't gonna work out the way you want it to. You think it is,
exactly,
you know.
exactly. And then Oh, okay. Some other comments came in, kind of like if you have your own business, he doesn't want her to have the business. You know, it's a control thing. And then I found that a lot of times those control issues, you know, that leads up to that abusive thing because the man might already feel inadequate. And so, in order to make him feel like he's the king, he'll put all these demands on his servant, or if they have kids, servants, and then they're not healthy, they're dysfunctional, and then they're trying to figure out why does when I walk in the room my family leaves out. It's like you created that environment, but that's a whole nother show. But you said you have another appointment coming up soon. uh uh Two things, can you tell us quickly about your book, and then how do people reach out to you?
All right, so my first book that's out, The Eve Effect, Secrets to Getting Your Desired Results from Him. That's a book for women. It's been out since 2014. You can find that on Amazon, of course, Barnes and Noble, online. It's at Nubian Books and in Morrow. You can find it there. Also, you can contact me at eveeffectbook@gmail.com, and I can get you a signed copy of that. It's also in Kindle version. Right now, currently, I'm writing the uh, the other part of that for the men. So the first book was for women, The Eve Effect. Now I'm writing a book called The Adam Effect, Being the Man a Woman Can't Resist. And so with that, within that book, it's talking about what God originally intended for the man and what he needs to be. And that kind of man is irresistible to a woman. And so very, very good pieces of information for love and relationships. Um, I'll be doing some other books pertaining to grief of me losing my son in a tragic car accident in 2017. So I'm gonna write a book about that, about grief. And then there's another book I'm gonna do for the family called How to Protect Your Family from Home Wreckers. I'm gonna do that book as well. Um, I want to say you can reach me also Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Just look up Anthony L. Wilson or Anthony L. Wilson Sr. You can find me there. Um, I want to just leave. I want to leave this piece uh, to all of this and the importance of prayer. I believe one of the ways to cheat proof your marriage is to pray with each other and for each other every single day. Understand, ladies and gentlemen, marriage is work. It is it's a job. There are no off days. You get no holiday pay. It's none of that. You have to work every single day. Why? Because the enemy is not going on vacation, and he's going to look for ways and means to come in and break up what God has joined together. And so, think about it. If you're praying with your spouse and for your spouse every day, and you're serving them, you know that if you're not doing those things that you're praying about, you're actually praying and making yourself enemy with God. Does that make sense?
Yes.
You know, Lord, protect my mate. Don't let anything hurt them. But then if you're the cause of that hurt, guess what?
You're working
All right.
against what you're praying
Right.
for.
And whenever you find yourself in your marriage and you're no longer praying, I'm telling you, here comes a tsunami, a storm, a hurricane, a tornado, an earthquake, a bomb is about to come in your marriage. So you have to get back to that mentality, serving others. You have to deny yourself, take up your cross, okay,
Daily.
daily, and do what's needed and necessary. But I really enjoyed speaking with you again. And please, feel free to have me back so we can really dig into some stuff. We didn't talk about how important sex is and stuff like that is key because I'm trying to figure out, because this is the point that came to mind earlier. I'm trying to figure out, you married, but y'all in two different bedrooms. The devil is a lie. Okay, so we need to talk about that. All right. So, but I sure enjoyed myself. I hope I said something to help encourage you as well.
Oh, thank you. It did. I want to thank you for being a part of today's show. And the goal was to try to give everybody something. If they're looking for hope for their situation, if you're looking for hope for your situationship, your marriage, your relationship, you have to start with God first. Find out what God's purpose is for you. And then you and your mate bring those purposes together,
Mm-hmm.
okay, to
Mm-hmm.
build a union that glorifies God in the ways that God has ordained. Don't make it up, because that's why a lot of us are in the relationships or in the messes that we're in. We keep making it up as we go, and that just doesn't work.
You talking now?
But,
You talking good?
but thank you so much. We do pray that something was said to have inspired you to hold on just a little while longer as you go on your way, and be blessed and take care. And thank you again, Pastor Wilson, for being with us. God bless
All
you.
right. Thank you. Bless you.